Hey guys, how you going? This is BillyEatWorld again, and today we're going to take another look at the history of FPS games. And in the last few episodes, we've been talking about Doom clones, and so today we're going to check out probably the most famous one, Duke Nukem 3D. Duke 3D is much more than a popular Doom clone though. In fact, it's probably one of the most legendary FPS games of all time. And that's basically because it took everything we love so much about games like Doom and Heretic and refined it all into one package, raising the bar for the whole genre. What that means is that on the surface you'll notice that it does have pretty much the same old gameplay, but with a lot of the modern features that are now staples of the genre. But the big difference though is that Duke himself, because never before in an FPS game had more focus been put onto the main character. Unlike the Doom guy, not only does Duke Nukem have a name, through the voice acting of John St. John and dozens of in-game interactions, he's also got a personality. And although this might not seem like a big deal, it really does make a difference because Duke Nukem is the brand, and as stereotypical as he is, he's a hard character to forget. Now, with that being said though, the plot of Duke 3D is pretty basic, and just like Doom and most early FPS games, it's a story of one guy trying to save the world. And once again, it's also set in the near future, but this time around, instead of fighting hordes of demons, you're fighting hordes of aliens and mutated cops. Unlike, say, in a game like Dark Forces, there's no story-based objectives, and so just like in Doom, you're pretty much hunting for keys and then an exit. Which isn't to say that this is a bad thing, because storylines in FPS games at the time weren't really that common, and mindless action after all is what Duke Nukem is all about. Even though the core gameplay is pretty standard though, like I said, Duke 3D does introduce or refine a lot of the features we take for granted these days. Like for example an inventory system very similar to what we first saw in Heretic, and a lot of other new futuristic gadgets like a jetpack and a hologram projector. Not just that, as well as the pistol and the shotgun you'd expect to find in most FPS games, Duke 3D also has a bunch of other cool new weapon designs that hadn't really been seen before. Like for example, indirect fire weapons like the remote control pipe bombs and the laser trip mines, which allow you to be much more tactical than you ever could in previous games. Now, the other main improvement Duke 3D had over Doom and a lot of the other clones was the quality of the graphics, which is a big part of why it was and is still so popular. And the reason for this is because it ran at an 800 by 600 SVGA resolution, whereas Doom and most other shooters at the time ran at around 320 by 200. By modern standards, both of these modes are obviously pretty bad, but back then it was a huge deal because Super VGA used more than twice the pixels. And even still to this day, 800 by 600 is actually kind of bearable, whereas 320 by 200 just looks terrible and it's enough to put most people off. The other big reason I think Duke 3D has survived for so long is that unlike a lot of games at the time, it had proper mouse aim and it used the W, A, S and D keys. And not just that, you can also crouch, duck and sprint, which makes it super easy for fans of modern PC shooters to just jump right in. In fact, two of the only modern controls that Duke 3D doesn't have are the ability to reload and the ability to aim down sights. So, in other words, although it really doesn't look like it should, all in all, it's actually probably got a lot more in common than you'd think with most modern hit-scan shooters. Now, to finish up, bearing all of this in mind, it is pretty easy to see why Duke 3D was such a big hit at the time. But with that being said, even though it was such a big step forward, believe it or not, it actually wouldn't stay at the top of the heap for very long. id Software's next big hit, Quake, would come out less than 6 months later, and unlike all the Doom clones before it, it featured fully 3D graphics. And so at the time, it kind of felt like Duke 3D was the end of an era, but little did we know, 20 years later, it would still be a household name. The reason for this is because over the last 20 years, Duke 3D has been remastered quite a few times, and it's also spawned a series of other games, including 2011's Duke Nukem Forever. And what I think this shows is that even though the formula has dated quite a bit and it's not as popular as it once was, it still has a place in the modern FPS scene. I think this is especially true now considering the recent revival of old school franchises like Doom, and who knows, maybe Duke 3D will eventually get the same treatment. Because the fact is, despite its age and all its flaws, even after 20 years, I still can't put this game down, which is something I don't often say, especially about retro games. But anyway guys, I think that just about brings you up to speed with Duke Nukem 3D, so let me know what you think of this game in the comment section below, and as always, if you like what you see, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Also check out the links in the description below if you want to see any more of my videos, or if you want to support my channel on Patreon, and until next time, see you later, and have a good one.